This type of meetup is experimental. We thought that we want to start a sequence of this type of events where we have open discussion on the topics that are not so straightly connected to our current business and the work and the roadmap, but it's about philosophy, about what we do, how we think, and what we're working on. So talking about Cindicator, when people are asking me and anybody from our team what is Cindicator, it's pretty hard to find the best efficient way to describe what it is. And depending on the circumstances and the environment and who is in front of you, it's always very different answer, which is giving the best approach of understanding what it is. And what we are working on and why we're doing that. And I can say that from some perspective, we are working mostly on research of phenomenon of the mind. So we are working to understand how the mind works and how to use it and how to use it the most efficient way. So we are always trying to answer to fundamental questions that we ask ourselves every day. What is mind and what does it do? And most oftenly, it comes to the question of decision making. One of the most expensive cognitive process for the brain. If we talk about the way how the brain works, we can say that for the central nervous system, one of the most problematic state is the state of uncertainty. We feel kind of frustration and pain when we feel uncertainty, and the central nervous system tend to look for solution to decrease the level of uncertainty. And the usual way of perception of this phenomenon is that uncertainty is something bad. When we answer to what we do, sometimes we use a simple and short answer that we change life. And this is really what we believe that we do. And what is changing life is changing the perspective on it, changing perspective of what is what and what to do with what. And here I want to go into discussion with you about how to change perspective on the phenomenon of uncertainty, why it's so important, how we change the perspective on it, how we implement it in our work, how it's connected to the decision making in investment types of decisions and all the other types of decisions. Yeah, so this is the goal. So what is uncertainty usually? We looked into vocabulary, and to find out the answer, we see that most of the synonyms are really bad, and no positive ones. And we always are looking for the positives. Like in our philosophy and all the strategic decisions that we've done, we used to rely on work of Nassim Taleb. So he is one of the philosophical founders of Cindicator. Not only the one, but his works and his thoughts are laying in the foundation of our strategy and philosophy. And this, so I think that you all are familiar with him and with his works. And the book of Anti-Fragility is how to gain from chaos, how to get positive from something that we used to perceive as bad. And the last word in the list of synonyms is the word wonder, that actually is giving the bridge to something positive. And this is giving the bridge to the feeling of curiosity. Actually, the feeling that drives the progress of humanity, that is giving us happiness, that is giving us opportunities, and all the good things, all the best positive cognitive processes. It gives us actually all the emotional power to act. If we go to uncertainty and why it's important, where the process of decision making is pretty hard, we can find it in all the major spheres of human life and human behavior. Politics, sports, which sport is not here, technology, art, investments, and business. Historically, these are the spheres where we started working on Cindicator. We started running research process of how to apply wisdom of the crowds or the madness of the crowds. And we found out that we can apply this approach of asking people of their opinion in all of these topics. Like it was like 4 years ago. And we switched our attention and focused to financial markets only for the reasons of the growth of our company. So we focused on financial markets intentionally to give our startup life, to give a business model, and to give it to build source of revenues, to apply this technology to other spheres after some times. So Cindicator is not only about investments. It is we're working on it to apply it in future to other spheres. And why we are doing this? Like for me and for my partners, we relied to understand our understanding of our mission on this earth, in this life, and how we perceive the era of where we live, the era of humanity, actually this 21st century, and what is happening with us. And we see that we are living in the era of growing uncertainty from everywhere. And the uncertainty which is growing and evolving together with our major challenges, that is challenges our lives, and creates the environment where we have to deal with these challenges in a new way, where the old ways to make decisions don't work at all. And the old ways to make decisions are, we can say, centralized. And we can say that they have this lack of biases where people are relying on some centralized analytical institutions that are trying to understand things during the discussions with each other, but they come usually with solution that engages biases, biases of those people who are mostly powerful of expressing their opinion, and usually the decisions are not driven by the multidimensional and multi-perspective view of what is going on and what is actually the truth. And this is the only right way to make decisions in this world that we are coming to. If we want to solve all the challenges. And the challenges are really global. They are not only about wealth. They're not only about one perspective. They have problems in many dimensions. And this is the complexity. And how can we make decisions that are efficient in all of these environments, in all of these dimensions, and take into consideration each of the problems. And we see that to survive and to live efficiently, we must change the way of perception of ourselves and the way of thinking. And this usual reaction of the brain to uncertainty should be changed from negative to positive, because actually we will have to live with this in future. And the human being, or that being which will evolve in future after we merge with machines, will have to live in an environment where the level of uncertainty is much higher than now, much, much higher. And we already face these questions: what is the difference between human mind and machine mind, how we can separate our works, and how our intelligence will bring value to life and to decision making. And mostly we used to come to understanding that machinery mind is aimed to collect data, to sort it, to process it, to find statistical patterns, to present them, and human mind is more about creativity, to find beauty in the house or in the future, and to create something. And this is the bridge, the uncertainty is giving the bridge for us humans, for our mind, to find this creativity and to express ourselves, and actually to become humans in this true meaning, what it means to be human. So this is the thing that we have to learn to work. So this is what we're talking about and thinking about in many concrete problems that we're working with Cindicator, and how we make decisions, how we rely on how we use hybrid intelligence in our decisions, and how we use our human minds in our life. This is the art that we are trying to perfect in our research work, in our growth of the business, in everything that we do, in how we are living. So this is actually what I've already talked about, and I can say that the presentation is very experimental. We've done it first time. One of the most important things that we have come to in the work in crypto space, in the work with other crypto projects, and in the work with this so-called new economy, which is so much discussed and put in the opposite to the traditional and old economy. And what is the difference? What does it mean, this new economy? And mostly it's about the word ecosystem is so popular in this. And we understand that this is mostly about the values of some values of the new society. And some, maybe we can say ideology, or maybe we can say new era, maybe this is post-capitalism era, something that differently and brings changes to human society. It's not what we clearly understand. It is what we are thinking a lot about and talk about and try to understand. And this goes to our work with community. And in our work with community, we rely a lot on people, and we can say that our company is kind of new type of company where a lot of work of the ecosystem of the company is done not by only employees, but a lot of work is done by community. You can say that those analysts that answer questions on our platform, they are some kind of employees. So they are performing the work, which is actually the process of value production. So thousands of people that are not full-time employees are involved into the process of value production, which is distributed within the ecosystem and utilized by other people in the ecosystem. And all these people share different values. They have different expectations, desires, thoughts, dreams. And this is very important. And the way how we communicate and the way how we know some of them with some of the people in our community, we have close relationships. Many of people do come with some ideas, and this is changing narrative and changing the way to work. And some kind of, we can say that it's a new type of government where decision making is taken into account the opinions of all the participants of the ecosystem. And we always try to decentralize ourselves, like not make any decisions internally. We try to create this kind of circles and involve as much people as possible from the ecosystem into the process of decision making. And this is what we are planning to experiment with in future, maybe in several years. So it's not written directly in our white paper, but this is what we're thinking a lot, that eventually we will run experiments on sophisticated and strategic decisions of the ecosystem, where we will involve all the participants from community to the process of decision making. We're not close to that moment yet, but we are very excited and waiting for the opportunity to make these experiments. And there are lots of questions, lots of curious questions on the way how people may be happy or not with this or that decision, and whose opinion should play higher or lower, take higher or lower weight, depending on the value that he's bringing to community, or depending on the value that he might bring to community in future, or depending on the level of his expertise in this type of question. And how can we evaluate all these parameters? It's not so easy to evaluate this even for straightforward questions of predictions of this or that financial instrument. Will Bitcoin be higher than this number in a week? Where we can calculate mathematically the standard deviation, and we can calculate the number of points pretty straightforward, which is realized to the financial analyst. After that, we have the community of traders who are using indicators. They are also a crowd. They also have collective intelligence. They also are making decisions. But when we run our statistical models on them, we're thinking about P&L, the profit and losses of their money management, how effectively they make decisions on top of these indicators. Even in these mathematical models, it's not that easy, and there are many ways to do that. So we experiment with them. And this is the basis for the future of the ecosystem, of how we can approach to the question of collective decision making, to the question of decentralized decision making. And I think that this is what future will bring us in maybe more than 10 years and maybe more than in 20 years. I don't know, but I want to bring this moment as soon as possible. And for me, it's the motivation to build the business, to build the revenue streams, to make this model sustainable. About the non-zero sum approach, which is, I think, probably the most complex problem of capitalism, and this is the problem of all the traditional market, that this is a zero-sum game. When somebody wins, somebody loses. And this is what we assume that probably we can change. We are crazy enough to assume this. And in our current ecosystem, this is represented in a way that those financial analysts who answer wrongly, they get negative points. We can say that they lose, that they have lost their time, they have lost their mental asset that they have invested into the ecosystem. But we see that actually they have not lost. They have gained the expertise. They have gained some fun. They have gained experience. They got right questions that helped them to look to the market from the right perspective. And they could not ask themselves these types of questions. And during some time of being in analytical platform of Cindicator, they grew up as professionals. So they didn't lose, they gained. Not so much, but compared to the moment when they have come to our ecosystem, and after some time later, they gain. The same we can say for the token holders, and this is what we think to have in future. If we talk about the future products that we are planning to release, we are running lots of experiments on different investment strategies that are run on the indicators that are produced by hybrid intelligence. And in future, we definitely will have some sustainable investment strategies which we can use to launch funds and have financial products for investors to manage assets. And this will be available only to token holders. So we can say that the indicators, they give a new way to look at the market and the way to make investment decisions. But at this moment, the traders in our ecosystem, they take the risk. They take the highest, I can say, risk during they run their experiments. And they collect the knowledge. So we have this collective knowledge that is evolving in the ecosystem. And quite soon, we will be ready to take kind of centralized risk on our side and be ready to launch these financial products, where the token holders will not take this risk, but will benefit from the way of asset management that is run by decentralized ecosystem. And this is the next step for the bridge of changing the zero-sum approach, where you cannot lose, even if you lose by yourself. When you participate in the ecosystem, you gain profits from it. This is what we can say from the perspective of money management. And our dreams go far beyond this because we are thinking not only about the money. So we're always thinking about what's next. But like when this will, when Cindicator ecosystem will be the best asset manager on the earth, what will be next? Why should we manage these assets, and what for? And what is the ecosystem in these circumstances? If we imagine that we are already there, so we can say that the ecosystem is the earth, and we will be responsible on management of the resources of the ecosystem. I mean like we as the community of human beings. And actually this is what is true now. We are responsible for the resources of this earth, and we are responsible for all the decisions that are made by not only us, but by all the community of all the humans. And what happens to the earth is responsibility of our collective intelligence. So about the solution that we have now, this is one of the old infographics. I think that you probably all have seen it already. If you are already token holders, this is the infographics that we had more than a year ago. Actually, at this moment, we don't have the infographics that represents current hybrid intelligence, and it becomes much more sophisticated. I can say that if in a year ago we had relied only on the community of financial analysts during giving them different types of motivations and asking them questions to predict. Now I can say that we experiment with this approach and apply it to different types of intellectual work. This community is the biggest, but we see that it approach works, and that we can use it applying to traders, that we can use it applying to data scientists that run and create different models. We can use it on our community to create text, videos, and creative contests. I don't know if you have seen the creative contest that we run, haven't you? Seems like that. So like we did this experiment about a month and a half ago, not so long. We asked the community to create video contents for prizes. And the outcome was pretty good, and we couldn't expect it. Like there were lots of videos created by community, and people were happy to participate in it and happy to describe it and help us to communicate to the outer world to describe what is Cindicator, because it's always not that easy. And we see that the hybrid intelligence is quite a big machine, a big symbiosis, a really organism that consists from lots of different algorithms, lots of different communities of people, and the symbiosis between all of them. And this organism is, I can say, unstoppable, that it's growing and growing, becoming more and more efficient, more and more intelligent, more and more sophisticated, more and more interconnected. And it has similar patterns of feedback loops, always learning, always understanding about itself. And it is built on the top of this philosophy of decision making, of working with uncertainty, like with something great, with like if there is some question, then there is some celebration soon. There will be some opportunity to grow, to change and transform. So the products that we have, I think that you all know about of them. We will have several new products during the next couple of quarters, different types of products. So they will be announced. I don't think that I can talk about them, but I can say that they are coming and will be in the next each quarter. About our roadmap, it's not so. Continuing my previous line of conversation, but I can say that we started in the 15th year and did a number of pivots and turns in our life. It was kind of fun. I can talk about any of this moment if you are interested to dive deeply. So this meeting is about conversation, so feel free to join too.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, great. Well, thank you for that, Yuri. Thank you very much. So maybe just to kind of put it to life, going back to at the beginning when you were talking about the different applications of this technology to different types of decision making. I mean, one area that obviously affects all of us is kind of government, and I think a lot of people kind of feel that the infrastructure of government, whether it be in the UK or the EU level or internationally, a lot of people kind of feel that it's perhaps broken or the way that decisions are made isn't the best way. How would a model like this, like if you were applying it to democracy, what might it look like in your mind? Like how could that be used for better decision making and better outcomes at a government level?
This question that we ask ourselves quite oftenly, and this is very sophisticated question where we don't have enough expertise to answer it correctly for sure, but we have dreams about it. Probably these dreams are naive, but we will see it because we are aiming to experiment with this. And in our current vision and understanding, which I assume will change a lot during the next year and 2 years, because it's always changing. We believe that we can formulate it into some kind of ideology with some kind of concrete values that are transparent for everybody, and where the problems and challenges of the community or ecosystem, which is kind of the same, are transparent to everybody. And the list of problems on which we have to make decisions is limited and understandable, that it could be described. And each of the participants may be involved somehow into this process. There should be reports on these problems, on the shared problems. There should be reports on the way how decisions on this or that types of problems are made or will be made. There should be some process where people may express their opinion if they want to on each of the problems. And there should be some process that takes into consideration all the answers. And this is the most sophisticated moment for the decision making, because usually crowd is met, and we cannot just take simple average of all the answers and make these decisions. That will be wrong. We also cannot take the opinions only of those who provide the biggest value to community, because they may be wrong also. But still there is some logic in this. Also we can rely on the expertise of those people in this type of question. but this will not be efficient for the ecosystem because efficiency is very related to the value. So the way to make best decisions is some sophisticated mix of all these approaches, which is quite hard to imagine for us, for human beings at this moment. But I can say that these are only dreams that are taken into consideration, and intuitively it sounds logical and fair that my opinion is taken into consideration of where we are moving. And I also understand that it is okay for me as one of 8 billion of humans that my opinion would be the opposite to the final decision. But I will be okay if I understand the logic and if I know that this decision is made at that time and kind of a bit more transparent than what is happening now. I will be more comfortable with that. And then in this hypothetical experiment, for me it will be very interesting to know in this outcome, if the decision is opposite to my opinion, to know how many people are thinking like me and how many people are thinking on the opposite, to compare myself with others and to understand, to run this learning process for me. Like if I will know this, I will probably run some important questions and ask myself what is really important on this earth and why I'm so different from others. And if I will know that, I probably will change my behavior and all that. So these are some thoughts on this.
Interesting. So when you then came to, when you were designing the ecosystem of analysts for Cindicator, what rules or what framework did you put in place? Like, what for you were the kind of the points that you had to say in order for us to draw the best insights, to draw the most accurate forecasts from the crowd? What particular things on your checklist? What were the things that had to be met in order for that to translate to the best outcome?
If I understood your question right, you're asking me about mathematical models?
Yeah, not necessarily in that level of depth, but I mean in terms of when you have a community that is distributed around the world, how can you make sure, when you were designing the community, what were the points that you needed to make sure in order for us to arrive at the most accurate prediction? What rules? I mean, things like, for example, not having, steps that you took not to taint the answer, to make sure that it was, going back to what we were saying earlier, an independent decision to stop, any issues with people basically leading other people towards a conclusion, or moving people towards kind of self-fulfilling prophecies. What particular steps did you put in place, or what were the kind of at a high level, what were the kind of the necessities to be able to draw the wisdom from the crowd?
I can say that we are very far from self-sufficient prophecies because it's about market manipulation. If there is lots of capital allocated to the strategies that follow our indicators, then this will have this type of impact. I don't think that we will come to this moment that biggest part of the capital of the earth will be allocated to one strategy, which is impossible actually by definition. All the strategies, they have limited capacity and they transform the way how the market behaves, so the strategy will change. The framework is always evolving, and it is different from depends on different types of questions. They have very different formulations and very different, and they give different point of view to trader to help him make the decision. And we see that at this moment we have about 5 different types of values for the decision making. And we see that there are actually much more than we have not experimented with yet. And they are sitting in the pipeline of experiments with different types of questions and different types of values that they give to traders. And all of them, they have different framework. And the challenge there is the current capacity of questions that we can ask. At this moment, we can ask only 125 questions per week. So it's about 500 per month, and not so much. But we can say that the change that we are planning to bring to the platform to increase this capacity of questions that we can ask, and this is what we can do pretty, not so easy, but the logic is pretty straightforward how to do that, and we can increase this capacity. I can say that maybe in 4 times with the current amount of analysts, and during the growth of community of analysts, we can increase this. The framework that we have now is how to extract the knowledge. Is I can say pretty primitive compared to what we know how we can do this. So it takes time to implement what we know, what experiments we have already run, and understood that this works, and we should bring it here. The framework, the basics of framework is that only a couple of percent or even less than a couple of percent people do actually answer pretty accurately. But the major knowledge that could be extracted from the madness of crowd is the knowledge that is laying on top of those clusters of people who are obviously mistaken. People used to be wrong, and the crowd used to be wrong. But there are patterns in the way how our expectations are different from reality. And there are patterns in this difference that if we know, we can apply the knowledge to make corrections on the answers of the cluster of big amount of people and get the more near to the reality. So this is like clusterization. And these different clusters and different patterns, they are very different to comparing to types of questions. So they are not copying each other. And the frameworks and even mathematical models are different for different assets, for different time frames that we ask. And this is very interesting. And we have to learn on this, and we are learning on this. There are also people, and this is the experience that we collect statistically, and it's not so easy to collect, what people are accurate during the period of time before the spontaneous fall of the market, like when the black swan comes. And there are some people, and what is interesting, these people are not those who are accurate during all the period of time. Those are kind of very strange personas that see that and they make these predictions right. But we should learn who are those people, and we understand that this is a very rare breed of people, but there are some strange people. They are not so wealthy, they are not so successful in life for some reason, but during this period of time they are correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, obviously because of the bear market, a lot of projects they're going to fade out, they don't have enough money, being blunt. What was your status? Did you guys go to the fear? What did you guys do at ICO?
Yes, we managed our assets during all the period of time. We did a number of trades, and I can say that we do them even. We don't do them actively now. We have a portion of fiat money that we use for our operational purposes, and we have fiat for the period of life of our company, like a year with a half.
You have enough 1.5 years.
Yeah, so we are ready to long winter. Yeah, and our assets are distributed in different types of instruments.
How do you define the weights when you have different conditions, different decisions? You put different weights and different indicators, and you see also different people on the basis of their credibility and the value of the network. How do you calculate or define the amount of weight you want to put on each different amount or after the prediction, and then how do you optimize that prediction to achieve maximum accuracy?
Mm-hmm. So this is where we have our major AI infrastructure, which is the biggest AI part of our technological infrastructure. And the architecture of it is similar on different types of financial instruments, but for each of the assets we have separated architecture. It consists of 3 layers, of 3 layers of intelligence. Like the third one, the bottom are people. The second and the third are statistical models. The second is the line where we have about from 15 to 30 comparing different assets. Linear statistical models like linear regression, Bayesian network, clusterization, different types of clusterization. Each of them is giving different weights to these people, to each of the persons. And each of these models is pretty basic, is not that sophisticated from a mathematical point of view. And it gives the weights to each of the people according to their history of answers on only this type of question. So on the second layer we have like 20 sets of these humans with different weights. And on the top of that, there is only one neural network, which is looking for non-linear patterns between these 15 linear models. And depending on different pairs or relations to the sets, it is setting different weights to each of the model. So this is how the usual, probably deep learning models work. So they are.
You keep training that model, so basically the longer that goes, the more the models are trained, the more people get bigger history.
Yes.
The higher the accuracy is going to go of the prediction.
I can say that this is the goal, and this is the way how it evolves. Yes. And I can say that during the evolution, we separate more and more these infrastructures while we understand the difference between questions. So we differentiate the problems and differentiate the accuracy that we are optimizing. So we have different accuracy for very different types of questions. And in each of these types, the accuracy grows.
One question is regarding adoption of Cindicator tools for whiteboardings. So we have a pool of indicators. What's the growth rate on a monthly basis or quarterly basis? Number of new indicators joining the analyst group. and how you attract the talented group of indicators, like crowd to crowd. Because like for talented, a guy with talented trading experience, he may think it's not my time worth to participate in the program. Without the input from an experienced trader, whatever maybe, the product may not be that much viable. So what is the strategy to attract talented crowd to participate in the production? The next question is, I see that the entry barrier to use the product. For example, if I want to use a crypto bot, if I'm an institutional trader, I'm happy to stake 500K Cindicator. But as an ordinary person with a portfolio of like 5 to 10K, for me, giving collateral of 500K Cindicator to access the bot is too far.
Yeah.
What's the strategy that an ordinary person can use Cindicator premium products without, I know that big guys can offer, but unless a common person can use the bot or the services, it may not be serve a purpose. What's the strategy that can be used?
Yeah, thank you for these questions. They are actually, they have similar answer. So we have groups of product managers, both for analytical platform and products for token holders. And these digital products, they are working like separate businesses with the usual rules of how products live. And there is funnel, how we acquire attention, how we capture attention, how we onboard them, and how we activate people in the process of usage, interacting with the product. And answering to the question of the rates of growth of the analytical platform and how we engage professionals there, we do not have active marketing campaign to attract new analysts, and we don't have it more than a year, I can say. And we do not do that intentionally at this moment. So we are still in the process of preparing to launch active marketing campaign for the analytical platform to engage analysts. Obvious question, why? Because we see that the parameters of the usage of this platform are very far from optimal or what we can call effective. So if we will look at the conversion rates on the different levels of this funnel, we see that it will be very inefficient to burn resources for the marketing campaign to this quality of funnel at this moment. And there are two types of resources, so like three types, so like time and money of the company, and the attention and the relationships with people. So there are lots of bottlenecks in each of the products, both on the analytical platform and on the Cindicator Bot and Cryptometer Bot. And before attracting people, we know how to attract, and it's not the big deal and not rocket science to attract people. So digital marketing is a pretty simple type of art. And so before doing this, we are currently focused on increasing the rates, the conversion rates of internal usage of the product. Still, it's possible to work with this, to learn to extract and utilize the value that is produced by hybrid intelligence. So the strategy here is before we will run an active marketing campaign for the analytical platform, we are focused on enhancing the quality of analytical platform. We are changing the user experience, the onboarding very deeply. So we are bringing gamification models there. We are working on the onboarding process. We're bringing lots of emotions into the interaction process. We are splitting this news feed with different questions to different kind of quests where they will have different types of questions with different funds, different price funds, which will bring them more fun and more freedom to choose what questions to ask and which games to play to analyze the market. So we are working on the user experience and changing the concept. And after we do this, we will run the aggressive marketing campaign to attract people fast. Now the growth rate is very slow, like what we have now, 120,000, is like passive growth, where we don't do nothing to attract these people. And the second part, what we do, what is the strategy on the products for token holders, there is obviously, if we look at the same rates of this funnel, we have the biggest loss of people that come to try the product. So we lose about 98% of people on the entrance before testing the product. So when people are ready to test it, they have to run Telegram bot. They have to buy tokens on exchange. They have to run this confirmation message. For many people, it's problem. Many people don't know how to sign a message during the transaction. It's kind of pain for even professional traders who are pretty intelligent people and educated people. It's hard for them to accept this reality that they have to Google this bullshit like to sign transaction, what is this? And we lose people there. Currently, the strategy working with the adoption of products is the same, is working on the quality of the product. And it is separated on different tracks and different roadmaps. One of them is user experience, which is currently in the works. So these products will be web-based and easy to onboard, much easier than Telegram bot. So this will help us solve the entrance problem, where we lose like 98% of people who are interested. Another thing is the quality of indicators and the functionality of these indicators and the question of what to do with them, how to make investment decisions based on these indicators. And there are two different aspects. One of them is accuracy, where the work is pretty straightforward. Accuracy comes from the number of analysts, the experience of hybrid intelligence, like the volume of data points that we have collected, and the quality of the statistical pipelines on top of that. So this is the roadmap of which is obvious. And currently we have started another type of work to bring new type of quality to indicators, is the help to traders to make decisions on top of these indicators. And I don't have the straight answer of what type of functionality will be implemented the first on this web version of the product. I can say the thoughts that we have at this moment. And they are about bringing new functionality to run experiments on these indicators, to be ready to produce investment strategy that will help traders to build their expectations on the possible outcomes of this or that strategy. If they will use this or that type of capital allocation to this or that type of indicators, and if they will set this or that stop loss and take profit parameters to this type of indicator in all the history. So they may run the back test of different types of experiments to be able to build their expectations. So this is not the exact function that will be implemented in the first version, but this is the way how we think it will, what type of value we're going to bring. So it's like the combination of indicator and the help to make decision on it.